Hello and welcome to the last section of Chapter 31 of the American Pageant for American Life in the Roaring Twenties. Today we're going to talk about cultural liberation through Wall Street's big bull market. That sounds intriguing. Let's get into it. I hit the wrong button. Look at that. We're back at jazz. Okay. So in the decade after World War I, you have a lot of American authors and artists that are disenfranchised with American culture and values. And so these new generation, this lost generation as they're called, they emerge and they give literature a new life. They're much more imaginative. They kind of set new tones. They have new themes, new ideas, and the quality also rises incredibly. This is where really American literature really kind of comes into being in modern times. So you have modernism, which is a philosophical movement during the 20s. Is a key component of this movement was the questioning of social conventions. Why do we do things this way? Why do we wear clothes like this? Why do we not speak about certain things? The flapper movement really kind of encompasses this modernism, the idea of evolution. Some of the examples we've seen in the chapter previously: jazz music, new technology, living in the cities, going to speakeasies. These are all kind of questioning social conventions, and so it's a clash of times against the traditional ways of America. H.L. Mencken attacked marriage, patriotism, democracy, and prohibition in his monthly American Mercury. Probably not very popular to the masses, but there were a lot of people that did enjoy his writings. And then famously, as you guys know, you guys have probably taken a lit class. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote This Side of Paradise, which most people don't know, but The Great Gatsby. When you say the 1920s, that's usually what people come to mind. It's, oh, Gatsby. And there's been 3 different versions of the movie, and there's the book and all that, and everyone reads it in literature class, and I think it's overrated. Don't tell your English teacher. Ernest Hemingway, pictured here, was among the writers most affected by the war. He lived in Paris afterwards, and he wrote lots of books, very masculine books, very straight and to the point, and some people love him, some people hate him. He wrote Delusions, Spiritually Numb American Expatriates in Europe in his first book, The Sun Also Rises, which is about bullfighting and drinking, but it's also about the loss of manhood and loss of basically a sense of who he was as an American. You have Sinclair Lewis, who wrote Main Street and Babbitt, which were based here in America. Not all authors were expatriates living outside of America because they were disenfranchised or upset with American values. You have Sherwood Anderson, who wrote Winesburg, Ohio. I feel like I'm a literature teacher right here. Oh boy. And then you have the Harlem Renaissance, which is a black cultural music that really grows out of Harlem and jazz music and the artistic expressions and actors and movies and you name it. But the epitome of it was Langston Hughes with his writing, his poetry, really kind of encapsulated this idea, this movement of African American artists, which were portrayed or being appreciated for the first time in many sectors. And that kind of goes along with the modernism. The idea is let's break social convention. These people, these authors, these artists, they have a voice. They have really good ideas. They're geniuses in their own right. We should appreciate them as well, as what many people thought. Architecture also became popular. Materialism and functionalism became popular as well. Here's a picture of F. Scott Fitzgerald and his beloved wife Zelda. Not Zelda with the Triforce and Link and Ganon and all that, you Nintendo nerds. This is a little odd painting from 1912. It's called Nude Descending a Staircase Number 2 by Marcel Duchamp. There you go, art. This is called the Darwin D. Martin House by Franklin Lloyd Wright. It's a prairie style. It's supposed to be simplistic and take native themes and horizontal lines and kind of clean it up. And it's supposed to be really, really, this is like an architectural wonder of Frank Lloyd Wright, if you're into that stuff. So while this is all going on, you have the cultural, the cultural stuff. The economy is going really, really well. The stock market, which was opened up kind of to the public during this decade, many, many people were now kind of investing in the stock market and playing the market to make a little bit of money easier. So the average citizen could now participate in Wall Street. Just to show somehow how the market grew, the GDP, the gross domestic product of the United States in 1922 was $70 billion. By the end of the decade, that had grown to $100 billion. That doesn't sound like much, but that's a substantial amount of growth in just one decade. The federal government did very little to manage the national debt after World War I. The Republican Congress created the Bureau of the Budget to help the president submit an annual budget to the Congress, which they do now. It's designed to prevent haphazardly extravagant appropriations. Don't tell our government there's $22 trillion in debt. Shh. The Treasury Secretary, Andrew Mellon, his belief was that taxes forced the rich to invest in tax-exempt securities rather than factories, and it hurt business, so he cut taxes. This is kind of the beginning of the notion of trickle-down economics. Mellon created a series of tax cuts from 21 to 26 to help rich people. Congress eliminated the gift tax, reduced excise taxes, the surtax, the income tax, the estate tax. Basically, they're just letting big business do what they wanted. It's kind of like all that progress from the progressive movement, all that regulation was rolled back in the 20s, and things went back to normal. I mean, Harding's campaign was a return to normalcy. The political cartoon you see here is Calvin Coolidge, who took over after Harding died. And his only really quote we know about him, because he didn't speak much, was the business of America was business. Until the government really went back to the laissez-faire approach and let business do its thing. And so you have this massive boom, which a boom in the economy is like blowing up balloons. You put a lot of air in it, it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and eventually it's going to pop. So Mellon's policy shifted the tax burden from the wealthy to the middle income groups. He reduced the national debt by $10 billion, but he sets up the people for a lot of debt, and it's going to be a bad thing. The next chapter, we're really going to get into the politics of the 20s and 30s, which causes the Great Depression. This is the GDP of 1920. It has this brief dip right here, if you look at the arrow, to kind of show the peacetime adjustment. Then it grows very steadily throughout the decade, and then great. This stock market crash. This is the happiest time in American history, the Great Depression. Slowly climb out of it, and then you have the Roosevelt recession. We'll learn about that in a couple of chapters, and then on to World War II. And this is all we have for the 1920s. I hope you enjoyed it. The next one, we'll be getting into the politics of the 20s. The cultural stuff's a little more fun, so I hope I don't bore you too much in the next one. Thanks for watching.